At the turn of the 21st century, however, with the ethnic identity of European Americans in flux and Americanization a key element of immigrant life, there was fewer Turner groups. Athletics events were limited, and non-German members and non-Germans were members. A survey of surviving groups and members reflects these radical changes in the role of the Turner societies and their marginalisation in the 21st century American society, as younger German Americans tend not to belong even to strongholds of German heritage in the Midwest. Newspapers. German newspapers in North America in 1922. As for any immigrant population, the development of a foreign language press helped immigrants more easily learn about their new home, maintain connections with their nativist land, and unite immigrant communities. By the late 19th century, Germania published over 800 regular publications. The most prestigious daily newspapers such as the New York Strasse Zeitung and the Illinois Strasse Zeitung in Chicago promoted middle-class values and encouraged German ethnic loyalty among their readership. The Germans were proud of their language, supported by many German language public and private schools, and conducted their church services in German. They published at least two-thirds of all foreign language newspapers in the US. The papers were owned and operated in the US with no control from Germany. As Whitkill emphasises press, it was essentially an American press published in a foreign tongue. The papers reported on a major political and diplomatic events involving Germany with pride, but from the viewpoint of its American readers. For example, during the later half of the 19th century, at least 176 different German language publications began operation in the city of Cincinnati alone. Many of these publications folded within a year, while a select few, such as the Cincinnati Free Press, lasted nearly a century. Other cities experienced similar turnover among immigrant publications, especially from opinion press, which published little news and focused instead on editorial commentary. By the end of the 19th century, there were over 800 German language publications in the United States. German immigration was on the decline, however, and with subsequent generations integrated into English-speaking society, German language press began to struggle. The periodicals that managed to survive in immigrant communities faced an additional challenge with anti-German settlement during World War I, and with Espionage and Sedition Acts, which authorised censorship of foreign language newspapers. Prohibition was also a disabling impact on German immigrant communities upon which the German language publications relied. By 1920, there were only 278 German publications remaining in the country. Athletics. Germans brought organised gymnastics to America and were strong supporters of sports programs. They used sport both to promote ethnic identity and pride and to facilitate integration into American society. Beginning in the mid-19th century, the Turner movement offered exercise and sports programs which also provided a social haven for thousands of new German immigrants arriving in the United States each year. Interestingly, Arnold Schwarzenegger used the same method to integrate himself into American society, and thus later on became an American governor of California. The beginning of the 19th century, another highly successful German sports organisation was the Buffalo German basketball team, winners of 762 games against only 85 losses in the early years of the 20th century. These examples and others reflected the evolving place of sport in the assimilation and socialisation of the much much of the German American population. It's also interesting that the social aspect of sports in American culture, that the Americans see sport violence as not by rioting, I mean, as barbaric, and because sports are a fundamental cohesive part of American life. And this is probably something to do with German ideas of society, and I think the word is Gemeinschaft. In 1850, 1850 in 1850, German immigrants who had arrived before the 19th century tended to have being members of the evangelical Lutheran churches in Germany, and created the Lutheran Synods of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and New York. The largest Lutheran denominations in the US today, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod are all dedicated churches that are all descended from churches started by German immigrants, among others. Calvinist Germans founded the Reformed Church of the United States, especially in New York and Pennsylvania, and the Evangelical Synod of North America, strongest in the Midwest, which is now part of the United States Church of Christ. Many immigrants joined different churches from those that existed in Germany. Protestants often joined the Methodist Church. In the 1740s, Count Nicholas von Zinderdorf tried to unite all the German-speaking Christians, Lutheran Reformists and Separatists, into one Church of God in the Spirit. The Moravian Church in America is one of the results of this effort, and many Union churches in rural Pennsylvania. Before 1800, communities of Amish, Mennonites, Moravians, and Hutterites had formed and still are in existence today. Some speak dialects of German, including Pennsylvania German, formerly known as Pennsylvania Dutch, from Deutsch. The Amish, who were originally from southern Germany and Switzerland, arrived in Pennsylvania during the 18th century, and Amish immigration to the United States reached its peak in the years 1727 to 1770. Religious freedom was perhaps the most pressing cause for the Amish immigration to Pennsylvania, which became known as a haven for persecuted religious groups. The Hutterites were another example of a group of German Americans who continued a lifestyle similar to that of their ancestors. Like the Amish, they fled persecution for their religious beliefs and came to the United States in 1870. Today, Hutterites mostly reside in Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota, the western provinces of Canada. The Hutterites continue to speak German. Most are able to speak Standard German in addition to their dialect. Immigration from Germany in the mid to late 19th century brought many different religions with them. Most numerous were Lutheran or Catholic, although Lutherans were themselves split among different groups. The more conservative Lutherans comprise the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod and the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. Other Lutherans formed a complex checkerboard of synods, most of which merged with Scandinavian-based synods in 1988, forming the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Some 19th century immigrants, especially the 48ers, were secular, rejecting formal religion, but about 250,000 German Jews arrived by the 1870s and sponsored reform synagogues in small cities across the country. About 2 million East European Jews arrived in 1880 to 1920, bringing more traditional religious practices.